This computer. Recording in progress. Welcome to another episode. Oh, wow, let's do that again. Zoom, zoom, zoom.
You're not going to edit this out.
Shut up. Another episode of Generation Zennial coming to you a day early on a Thursday because, you know, we have real things
to do. We got things to do. We're people. We got lives.
We got conflicts tomorrow, so we do a day early because we don't have conflict right now. Although I'm getting calendar invites for meetings for next week, and I'm like, meetings. Although
work, life.
Responsibilities. How dare they get in the way of us talking about random stuff that people talk about on the internet? And you know what? I tell you, I don't know if you saw, for Lent, I gave up talking about politics on social media. And it's kind of fun because like I just scroll right past things. I'm like, normally I might engage with this, but now I'm just like, I am not even going to respond because it's not worth my time. And I just keep going and it feels nice.
Yeah, it must be a little bit relaxing just to be able to just scroll past and like, I'm not going to engage in this because no good ever really comes out of it other than maybe some like cathartic, like getting it off your chest and being like, you know, just telling people that you're being stupid.
Right, because no one's going to change their opinion based on what I say on social media. Let's be honest here.
Obviously, no one. I don't think anyone has. You know, but the unfollow button has been my friend for the past probably 4 years.
I do the mute button sometimes. Like you can snooze a person for like 30 days.
Oh yeah, you're on a break.
So if like if it's like a relative that you don't want to tell, because you don't want, maybe some relatives you just don't want them to see that you unfriended them, but if you snooze them, they don't know.
Well, that's why I use the unfollow button. That's my go-to. If you post stupid stuff, you just got unfollowed. That way, I don't see your stupid stuff anymore. You know, me being the person that I am, I do always like to keep in touch on what the opposition party is saying, just because I like to keep up with their arguments. And like one of my favorite things to do on YouTube is watch videos that debunk like right-wing videos. So like like videos that basically watch PragerU videos and talk about how awful these takes are, or like Ben Shapiro videos and talk about how awful his take is. Then that's where I get my right-wing news from, is from other people just basically slamming people like Ben Shapiro and PragerU and Dave Rubin.
I just saw a TikTok yesterday. It was like, you know, what Jewish people should we discriminate against because yada, yada, yada. And like, 1, you should not discriminate against anyone based on the religious, blah, 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 whatever. 2, Ben Shapiro. And that was the list. And I was dying. I was laughing so hard. I was like, that's brilliant.
Ben, big boy Ben. He's a character. It's almost entertaining to watch, like the things that he says, and I remember like when he first started doing what he's doing, at least got popular with what he was doing, like 5-6 years ago. I remember talking to somebody about him, and who was on the right, and he was a big fan. And I was just like, this guy's a clown, man. He's like, oh. And it's like, even back then I thought like, at least he like seems like he's educated and actually does like read up on things. And I thought like maybe he actually did like his homework, but now it's just like, no, he's just coming up with random things that he says. And like without he's one of the, you know, he's just one of these commentators that just says things without context. And then like, if it's vague enough, it might sound like it's right, especially like when it comes to his transgender like agenda. I know he was big on that for a long time, and obviously with everything going on and with the Equality Act and stuff, he's kind of back on it. And it's just like, he's the facts don't care about your feelings guy, and like it's all about his feelings all the time.
It always, you know, as you're talking, I was thinking about myself. I've thought over time and time again, like, you know how like you have the Rush Limbaughs and Alex Joneses, and like they make all this money on talk radio and they just can talk for hours and hours. I was like, where's the Democratic side of that? Where's the liberal version of that? I was like, all right, we can't have the liberal version of that because they're just saying whatever they want to say with no fact base, no fact checking, no reality check. They just have free license to say what they want on the talk radios of the world.
That's what makes them so entertaining, right?
Right, it's entertaining, but
there is leftist radio out there, right? There is leftist,
but it's not entertaining.
No, it's not. It's not. It's basically just like, you know, this and that. Like I listen to Tom Hartman on the way to work sometimes, and you know he gives out good information, I think. But yeah, it's not as entertaining as like a
Well,
Rush Limbaugh.
didn't
Like I even used to listen to Rush Limbaugh
didn't Al
before it
Franken
got, like
start
way
a
too
radio
crazy.
station once? Al Franken started like America One Radio like
Yeah, I
10
mean,
years ago.
it's out there. Like Sam Cedar does a
But
podcast. It's on YouTube now.
it's not
That's where it started on American One. Him and Janine Garofalo back in
it's not as
that was a long
entertaining
time
because
ago.
like you said it's when you do things that are fact based, it's not entertaining because it's
No,
reality.
which is why like the best leftist content is basically them debunking right wing videos.
Because it's
That's because you get to watch their craziness and you just go, no, this is ridiculous.
well,
Um,
speaking of entertaining, let's talk about the 3-day comedy spectacular of
that was
CPAC.
CPAC.
That
Yes.
I mean, I say comedy because like I think the Daily Show put together like the kings of conservative comedy highlight reel and like was just like showing like clips of them as like comedians because they were trying to do comedy. I mean, you
It's a
have
good
Ted
penchant,
Cruz.
right? You want
Yeah,
you want to try to keep things entertaining
and don't be
like
wrong, you should get out there with a
engaging.
good dad joke once in a while. Like that's acceptable. It's fine, But joking about how you went to Cancun instead of staying in your home state while everyone else is suffering and dying, like
Making
that's not a
jokes about
joke.
that.
That's not a
Making
joke,
jokes about that, and he got a pop, and it's like, well,
especially a week removed from it.
Ted
You know,
Cruz is awful. I don't know how anybody like
if he
looks
gets
at Ted Cruz and
reelected
goes,
again,
"Yeah, that's a guy I want to support." Like,
like if he actually gets elected again, it's. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because of the gerrymandering that happens in Texas. Like
well,
the
he's a
Texas,
senator.
yeah.
There's no gerrymandering in the Senate.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, good. Touche, touche. Sorry,
But
apologies.
but Texas is still
Texas.
pretty red. It's start. I mean, there's arguments there that it's starting to turn a little purplish. We'll see.
Well,
I think it'll be pretty interesting.
well, I mean, it really depends on, like you said, Senate wise, one thing, but because of, like you said, how it's gerrymandered, you have representatives goes a different way because, you take Austin. Austin, is a very blue city. If you think about who's in Austin, Texas,
Oh yeah.
but like 7 different. Don't quote me on the number. I think it's like 7 different districts slice into Austin, and then branch out into rural Texas
Probably. I mean,
by
probably.
like
Yeah, I
miles.
don't. I don't doubt that. I don't know the specifics of
I've seen the maps before. It's
Texas local
crazy.
politics, but I'm sure that's something that they did. I mean, that's any state. Really,
Oh, it's
the city
horrible.
the cities are blue, and then it kind of spreads out into red. That's why you see that map that conservatives like to throw around, where it's like the whole country's red except for these little places. But
Yeah,
most of that redness is dirt, right? Let's be
it's
honest.
dirt and
Most of that dirt is
cows,
dirt and like forest and and mountains
and
that nobody
Bigfoot.
lives on.
You know,
Yeah, Bigfoot might be conservative. I don't know.
I don't know. No, he's more of a naturalist.
Probably.
But
Maybe
let's talk about.
maybe he's an eco-fascist. I don't. Who knows?
I mean, let's talk about CPAC first. Let's go back to like I remember last week you texted me the picture of the golden idol,
That
and
was my
I
favorite part, and
and I was just
and
like,
literally people like
really?
worshiping it. Like literally, I saw people like bowing down to it, and maybe as a joke or whatever, but still, it's like they don't realize the irony in that.
These are
Like this
people
is
that are
supposed to be the
conservative
religious.
Christians, right?
This is supposed to be the religious right too, right? Like, and I'm not saying that every person on the right is a Christian because obviously that's not true. There's plenty of right wing atheists out there. I
But I
belong
mean,
to
this
it.
this was it's a very well known story in the Old Testament about worshiping a golden idol. And here they are. They created a golden idol and they're worshiping it. It's just like it blows
Yeah,
my
that's why it's
mind.
like, did someone get like this? Did someone get the irony in that? And it was like, well, we're gonna do this as a joke, and like, uh, that's the whole thing. The thing with this, did we talk about the stage last week with the with the
Oh,
with the rune?
oh no, I don't think so. The stage that is basically a Nazi symbol.
Yeah, like it's like stuff like that. Do people just go like, oh, we'll do this, and no one will actually like get with the joke here. Well, that's not really a joke, but you know what I mean with the messages here, and we'll just do it as a and I just don't get it. It's almost like it's too easy, right? It's too much of a coincidence to do these things and like not not take it ironically. Like,
Well, yeah, as
yeah,
my
and
friend.
was it one stage designer like with the stage? Like, was it the one guy going, "Oh, I'm going to sneak this in there," and like nobody else realizing it, or was it like a group decision where they're like, yeah, we'll do this, and like it's a big conspiracy. Like that's really, for me, that's kind of hard to believe, but you never know. And that's
Well,
that's the problem in itself, right? Is that you have to question these things. Like
apparently it
that's
was questioned. Like the hotel staff who was setting it up questioned the design. Like
yeah. 'Cause I mean,
someone
I didn't know that was a Nazi
someone
symbol
brought it up and was like,
until someone brought it up. So
we
I,
shouldn't
if
do
I saw
this.
that stage, I would have been like, okay, whatever. But then it gets compared to it, and you're like, wait a minute, yeah, it is. Was this done intentionally? Like, what's going on here?
Well, like my friend who used to be a set designer says, there's no accidents in set design. Like it's you know what you're doing when you design the set. And then again, like I said, there's checkpoints. You know, one person designs it, maybe they're ignorant. They don't realize what they're doing. They just think it's a cool design. They show it to other people. Someone at some point should be like, that looks familiar. But apparently, I heard the story or I read it somewhere. I forget who I was talking to. But they're like, the hotel staff who's in charge of actually assembling the stage was like, this is they were like, this is, a Nazi symbol or whatever. But the organizers was like, no, this is what you're putting up. Like they still insisted on having it done. So at some point that that did happen and they still pushed back against it.
Yeah, so that's kind of, at this point kind of sounds like it's like intentional,
Yeah.
Which is cringe. It's big time cringe. But there's Nazis out there. Like I don't know what to say. There's Nazis. There are Nazis on the right, and we know this. This is not new. This is not new information.
Now, did you watch any of Trump's speech? Because we watched half of it.
That's funny you say that because I think I got about through half of it as well. And
It's just that I fell asleep and I didn't want. We were gonna watch it later and we just.
I didn't watch it on the day. I actually listened to it yesterday because I knew that we were going to talk about it, and I tried listening to it the day of.
He was playing the greatest hits. Let's be
That
honest.
didn't work out. It was. We talked about last week how it was going to come out with anything new, or was it just going to be? It was going to be his classics, and
he was he was the Allman Brothers playing the hits, and he was playing the classics, and it was just there was nothing new. There was one new thing he called on Biden to open up schools, and that was it.
It was his original. It was the immigrants are coming again.
Oh yeah.
Joe Biden's going to let the immigrants in by the millions. By the millions.
The other new thing he did mention some stats from a survey that was taken, like 95% of people approved the job that I did, except that the stats he was pulling from were the survey that took place at the conference of the people that were attending CPAC. So yeah, of course everyone's gonna say they approve the job you did.
95% of the people at CPAC who came to see Trump speak approved of Trump. That's
so shocking.
Who are the 5%? That's what I want. Who are the 5% of there? They go, nah, he's terrible. But
that's like saying
I still go watch him.
90% of the people that attend Fenway Park are fans of the Red Sox.
Right.
It's like, come on.
That number probably won't even reach 95%. But
well, it depends on who they're playing.
If they're playing the Yankees.
Well, then the Yankees fans infiltrate.
10% of Yankees fans there. Like,
no, more. It's like 40%. Trust me.
Really?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, because whenever it's one or the other, like people, because it's close enough, you can travel from one city to the other, and there's enough. The territories are so close that there's spillover within the middle of the territory, so you get a lot of.
I know if you go to like Baltimore and when they're playing the Yankees, it's mostly Yankee fans.
Oh, same with the Red Sox. Like people will travel. Again, Baltimore's close enough where it's like, hey, let's have a weekend. We'll drive down. We'll stay the night. We'll see the game tomorrow. We'll stay another night and drive home. It's not.
I heard the Rays too because they're in Florida and that's where New Yorkers go to retire. So I hear the Rays don't get a good attendance anyway because nobody cares about baseball down there. There's more things. There's more things to do.
Also, it's just where the stadium is a crappy location. Because my dad was telling me about this. It's because it's not on the mainland. It's on like an island off the mainland, and there's only one access road to get there. So just the logistics of getting to a game are like they're inconvenient. There's not a good. You can't easily get there all the time. So, unless the team's doing well, it's just like meh. I could just watch it on TV. Why am I gonna?
I think even when the team's doing well, nobody shows up to those games.
Yeah. Oh well. Also, the stadium is horrible.
That's what I've heard.
It's just it's a horribly designed baseball stadium. It sounds horrible. It looks horrible. It plays horrible. They need a new field. They need a new everything. We are getting on baseball. Well, it is spring training time. Baseball
Spring
has
training
begun.
time.
Let's be
It's
honest.
more interesting than CPAC, let's be honest.
It's
But
more rewarding
yeah,
too.
back to Trump's speech. Yeah, it was the hits. It was the immigrants are coming. Joe Biden's already the worst president in the history of the world, which is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And he's been there not even well, a little over a month now.
Yeah, let's judge him after a
And
month.
he's
Right.
already the worst president in the history of the United States. It's horrendous, apparently.
Yeah, it's horrible.
The one thing I do, the one thing I do like about Trump is that to me he makes Joe Biden sound amazing. Like all the stuff that he says Joe Biden's going to do, I'm like, yes, thank you, this is great. And then Joe Biden doesn't do any of the stuff that Trump says he's going to do anyway. He makes out like the whole socialist, Democrat socialist agenda. I'm still waiting for it. I mean, they can't even get $15 an hour minimum wage, so I don't know how they're going to turn ownership to the workers. They can't even get the workers a $15 minimum wage. So I don't know when we're going to start taking over ownership of companies, of corporations. These socialist corporations is one of my favorite like oxymorons that conservatives love to say, because by definition,
A
like
corporation is not socialist.
privately owned corporations are are not socialist. It's not how socialism works.
You can
Um,
have more fair corporations. Is the
yes,
word
and
I'm
you can
looking
have
for?
corporations that do woke things.
Well,
Like I know we're going to get
woke.
into the wokeness of the Dr. Seuss corporation. I don't know what they're called, but the people that the legacy of Dr. Seuss that oversee that. That's a hot topic this week.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, when I say woke, I hate the term woke, by the
Me
way,
too.
because
But I
again,
like to
it's
use
it's
it
another thing
because
that's been
everyone knows what it
co-opted
means.
by both sides,
Yeah,
and everyone uses it a different way. But I think of some companies, both in the U.S. and like Denmark and places like that, where they've just changed the idea of work itself, like and the idea of the 40-hour work week, vacation time, sick time, all this stuff, rethinking that. And ironically, I've been talking about this just to my students this week of how like I don't believe in the 40-hour work week. I don't believe in having a designated this is how many vacation days you get in the year. I believe in like, hey, you need to take time off to go do whatever. You take the time off. You still get your salary, and then
yeah,
we judge you based on is the task that you're assigned to do, are they completed or not. If you do your stuff, if you're a project manager or you're working on this thing or whatever it is, as long as that is done within the time frame that has been assigned, how if you decide to work 10 hours this week and 60 hours next week because you have a family thing going on, I don't care. As long as it's done and as long as you're accessible, I think there's actually
yeah. Obviously,
there's a snowboard company. They're
that
like,
can't be.
it can't be everything. Like
Yeah, that
my
can't be
wife's work
applicable
can't
to
do that.
every job.
A physical therapist can't do that because they need to see
No,
patients.
physical therapists can't do that. People who work in who for food services, and that's our economy is so service based that that kind of system wouldn't really work out for the majority of the people. But I mean, we can do things like give people more vacation time,
Right.
give people better wages, like and yeah, I mean the it was. I would just like to go back to the old Jetsons joke where it was like I think he worked like 5 hours a week because that's what people thought the future was going to be like because they thought automation
Was
was
gonna
going
do
to give
everything.
people was going to and the way workers were treated a lot differently back in the 60s, right? They did value their workers a little bit more, and a
Well, we
lot of
had
that had to
stronger
do with
unions
the
back in
high.
the '60s.
We had stronger unions. A lot of that had to do with taxation because it was either the owners were either going to pay the government or pay their workers, so they'd rather pay the workers,
Right, because you had the highest tax bracket was getting paid taxed like 90% at the time
yeah,
back in the '60s and '50s and
which we need
'70s.
to go back to, and even if we raise that highest tax bracket up to like over $1 million, that would still be a big benefit.
Right,
Um, but there's a lot of bootlickers out there that will tell me that no one will do anything if the tax bracket's that high. And it's like that's ridiculous. People
because
there were
that
still rich people back when the tax brackets were ridiculously high, and there's still rich people in other countries where the tax brackets are ridiculously high for the top earners.
right,
It's
and
these are
everyone
just
else was
arguments
better
that
off
people
for
have
it.
heard.
Well,
And
yeah,
of
it's
course everyone else is better for it.
it's the story that we've been
You provide
sold
better
since
services
Reagan.
for your citizenry, right? We talked about this all the time, like education for your citizenry, healthcare for your citizenry. Like it just makes for a better society. But
Yeah.
but the
Well,
bootlickers out there won't allow it. right now. I don't
You
know.
know,
I don't get it. It's funny too because it's a lot of the people who are living in near poverty, who don't want the people actually living in abject poverty to succeed for some reason, and it's just why it's the way they pit
well,
workers against each other
it's like that meme.
almost impressive to me.
You know the meme where you got in the middle, you have a guy in a suit with a big pile of cookies. On one side, you got
Yes,
a white man with the one cookie, and on the other side, you have a person of that non-white descent, and the guy with all the cookies points to the other guy and says, "That immigrant wants to take your cookie." You know, that's what it is. It's like it's the people in power convincing the people with a little that someone else is going to take the thing instead of realizing it's the person that has everything
instead of
that's
the guy with the
already
actual all the
taken it.
cookies.
I was already taking
But
it
they've
from
been
you.
convinced that that guy earned his cookies.
Yeah,
Like
he
they've been
didn't. Or
convinced that
shit.
that one man has, with all the cookies, has somehow earned all those
And
cookies, while
you
you have
too
one
can do
cookie
it.
and the guy across has no cookies. And there's one cookie between the two people, and there's one guy with all the cookies, but somehow he deserves all those cookies, right?
And if you work hard
He's
enough,
done
you too
something.
can have them.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's basically what I think everyone's been told, and that's a big lie. Like the myth of the self-made man is like,
Oh God.
um, right? Nobody's self-made.
Right. We all got
There, you
here
can
on
always
the
you can always
shoulders of
point to
somebody else.
something. You can always point to something where, yeah, where someone has benefited from somebody else in order. Like there's no such thing as a self-made man. I'm putting it out there right now. If anyone wants to challenge me on that, that'd be great.
Well, the
I would
people that are
love
going
to
to
have that
challenge you are
debate.
the people that's going to challenge you is the poor white guy that says, "Well, I don't have my white privilege, so I'm still poor." It's because it
That's
it
the
didn't happen
worst.
to them. They don't see it, but it's like I always argue if you had to take two people that are born their parents make the same income, they're born in the same neighborhood, all this stuff, but you change one thing, color of the skin, whatever it is, you're going to have drastically different outcomes. It depends on what
Statistically, yeah, that's bears out statistically all the time.
you know
But yeah, the problem is that
because it's
everyone lives
opportunity.
their own life, right? Everyone lives their
Yeah.
own, and that creates their own little paradigm. And yeah, sometimes it's very hard to recognize that, I guess, when you live in that paradigm. But
Well,
if you
this.
just
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying, but statistically, like you're correct. Like most of the time, it bears out the way that we're talking about. So
See, I was gonna make a good segue here. Speaking of living your own life, you know, if you want to be free, go down to Texas or Mississippi now. Strip that mask off. Everything's fine. Go into a business. Go into a restaurant that's packed because the virus is over. Pandemic is won. That's what I
yeah,
heard about in Texas. They can't figure out how
um,
to fight snow, but man, this pandemic is over.
and that's what I'm worried about too. I think it's a big distraction. I think it's just okay. Well, we had all these issues happen with the government, so we're just going to say, oh, you know what, masks off. You don't have to wear masks. You don't have to enforce masking rules. You can open the restaurants. You can do whatever you want. Full capacity. Everything's over. The scary thing is that even before this, the mandates were lifted, Texas and Mississippi were starting to have increasing number of cases again. So I've always said, like, when cases are going down, it's you might be able to start lifting restrictions. When cases are going up, it's not the correct time to start lifting restrictions. But
Right.
I guess they just said, you know what, we're done with it. We're just going to go ahead, open everything up. It's your choice, and that's the biggest problem that I've heard online. Was a lot of people who were supporting this move was saying, well, I'm glad that the states are just giving people the choice, because if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But it's like two things. If the government tells people that it's okay to do it, people are going to do it. You see that across the board, right? You've seen it
Yes.
with casinos, you've seen it with restaurants. People are going to say, well, if they're letting me do it, that must mean it's
It's a
safe,
fine.
or but right, it's fine, it's okay. Like they're allowing me to do this, so I mean, you see it in basically everything, not just virus. I mean, everything. If you see this in, like, laws where it's like, well, if there's no law against it, it must be fine to do. Or that's not always the case, right? There's could be other reasons why it's not a good idea to do. Um, but that's how people kind of live their life, right? If it's not against the law, it must be fine, right?
Hmm.
So um, so that's the big thing. People are going to do it if you allow them to do it, and it's not always going to be the best thing to do. I mean, we'll see what happens, right? Right now my money would be on we're going to see a drastic increase in cases in those states. Um, but also too, it's not just about it's not just about you and your individual like life, right? It's like if you choose to still wear a mask, and I go into a grocery store where nobody's wearing masks and it's at full capacity, and I still have a better chance of getting sick.
Right, because everyone else isn't following the
And
regulations, even though you are.
right, and it's not. That's the thing. It's like this is a communal. This is something that has to be fought communally. This is something that has to be done as a society. But it's not about individual responsibility. And it's like, well, if you don't want to go to a restaurant, don't go to a restaurant, which is that's fine. Like you don't like you said you haven't really gone out to eat much since the pandemic.
Zero.
And that's going to keep you safe. Right. But there are things that people need to do, right? like,
Yeah.
like grocery shopping and stuff like that. And it's not always feasible. Like we've been getting our groceries delivered, which is great. It's number one. It saves a lot of time. It's really not that much more expensive. But there's people out there that really that don't have that and can't and aren't able to do that.
Yeah, we've been doing the pickup. Like now you can instead of delivery, you can
pickups
just
are nice too.
you drive there, you call the number, and they bring it to your car, and they put it right in your trunk for you.
Yeah,
Like there's
which is
contactless,
nice
which is nice, and and for anyone that's like, oh, it's more automation, whatever. It's like no, now I'm actually, this is almost like the rebuttal to like everyone always says like, oh, they're putting in more self checkouts. Oh, you're working for the grocery store, or whatever. I'm like, actually now that I'm doing this, we're almost going back to the old days of grocery stores where I'm giving them the list of what I want, they're getting it for me, and they're bringing it to my car. This is the original grocery store. And I'm paying someone like it's a nominal. It's like $4 for them to do it, but it's employing somebody. I think I've employed more people now because they have a job to do in the store.
Somebody has to get those groceries together. So
right.
Someone has to do that shopping for you.
And then bring it out to the
car.
Yeah,
I mean that's funny you brought that up because that was one way that grocery stores actually started putting the onus on you is making you go and shop for your own things. And people don't realize that. People don't realize that because it's been going on for so long, and everyone's kind of grown up with this. Is that's the idea of a grocery store? Is you go in, you pick out what you want.
But it used to be you give the clerk a list and they would get it for you. That's the original grocery store.
Also, too, there wasn't 50,000 brands of cereal to choose from.
That's true. I mean, Piggly Wiggly is the first grocery store that created the modern sense of the grocery store where you walk up and down the aisle yourself picking out your own products.
So there's a history lesson for you.
Sorry, if you listen, what 99% Invisible, I think, was a podcast I listened to that did a whole story about it. It was fascinating.
That's pretty cool.
Because I learned about it. Like, we think this is how it's always been, but like it hasn't always been this way. It's been a different way for a long time.
Right,
and then total side tangent. My other argument too is like people are like, oh, I'll never use the self checkout because it's taking jobs away. I'm like, do you still call the operator when you want to call somebody? That took a job away, but I don't see you complaining about the fact that there's no operators anymore that you have to call to connect you to somebody else.
That's back to our automation argument, right?
Automation is always going to happen. Technological progress is always going to happen. We can do two things. We can sit here, bitch and complain and fight against it, or we can recognize that this is going to happen and figure out how we move forward from here as a society, whether it's UBI, whether it's other positions that, sure, McDonald's has automated, I go in and put my thing in, but now there's like a team behind that counter that's putting everything together. It's actually the same amount of workers in a lot of places because now they're just assembling meals faster. They can do more.
Yeah, that's what people don't realize either. Like, I worked in fast food when I was younger, and yeah, you don't need less people to do that. You actually almost need more people because then you can get the orders out faster, and that's what they're all about, right? They're all about efficiency, and
not only that, you get less errors too. Because when you have the person putting in the touchscreen what they want, and especially, I worked very short time in fast food. Like, if someone comes in speaking a language that you don't understand, one, it slows down the interaction, and you have a larger chance of messing up their order, and it's frustrating for both parties. And if you can take away that barrier by making it easier for them to place their order, which I think for me personally, I'm like, that just makes it equal for everybody. Like if anyone can walk in, I can choose my language I want on the screen, and now it's easy. And because it's graphical too. Like I don't even have to be able to read. I can just look at the pictures and say I want this, this, and this, and then pay for it. It makes it easier for everyone to engage and have access to the resource, which I'm all for.
That's a good point you made about automation, because that was why Andrew Yang was so popular in the primaries, because he was actually speaking to this.
Mm-hmm.
The issue I have with UBI is it's a band-aid for a surgical wound, but it's still better than nothing, right? It's better
It's
than
doing
leaving
something instead of just complaining about the problem.
right? It might let the patient live an extra couple seconds, but it's not. We need more than just a UBI. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Where's when we have automation? Where's that productivity going to go? Right? Is the labor based on that productivity going to go back to the workers, or is it going to go back to the owners? And I think a lot of arguments on the left obviously would be like this, that productivity needs to go back to the workers. I mean, that's Bernie Sanders' platform for a long time now, is that
Right.
productivity has been going up and up and up and up, and wages have been stagnant. And that's not the way we should be running a society.
Agreed. Well, I agree with everything you've said. The world is solved. Let's move on.
I agree with everything I say too.
I don't agree with everything I say though, because I will correct myself.
That's on you, Keith.
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you about that.
Well, it's just more of
I always agree with everything I say.
Or I should say I don't agree with everything I've said in the past.
Well,
which is called growing as a person.
I agree with that as well. Yeah,
that's another political thing I always find.
I don't agree with everything I've said in the past, obviously, but
when you have,
and I think we just made another segue though.
I was gonna make a quick side jump. I was just thinking about. I always find it funny, like when Republicans will go and attack. So happened to Joe Biden during during the campaign, bringing up things he said 30, 40 years ago, and like, well, look what he said 40 years ago. Look what he said 30 years ago. Even though he's come out and said that those things, he's changed his whatever, that was wrong. He's changed his opinion about X, Y, Z. If you're a Republican, it's like you can never change your mind. Like once you're 20, like this is your mindset and this is what you believe in for the rest of your life. And you're not allowed to evolve as a person. Of course, they don't believe in evolution, so that makes sense.
Right, and any new information is wrong. Right? Any new information that we get is just blatantly just incorrect and wrong and unnecessary.
We look at even just the past year with like the pandemic and Fauci, right? Oh well, Fauci used to say we didn't need masks, and now he's saying 2 masks. And it's like because they don't understand like information evolves, science evolves. Our thinking about things evolve, and as it evolves, we need to change what we think about the thing. To be stagnant in it is not helpful, and it doesn't do any good. So speaking of evolving, see, there's a segue.
Yeah, we'll go right into that.
So I'm sure you've heard this week in the past couple of days, especially because his birthday was 2 days ago, that we can't read Dr. Seuss anymore. All the books have taken off the shelf.
Canceling Dr. Seuss.
We're burning all the books. We're having a big book burning.
We're digitally burning his books.
If you have Dr. Seuss books in your house, please burn them immediately. They're outlawed currently. You cannot have them anymore. That's what I heard. That's what I saw.
Joe Biden's socialist America is burning Dr. Seuss books. Yeah, because guess what?
That's not what's happening.
This is. I'm gonna tell everyone out there listening. This is sad. But Dr. Seuss, at one point, was a huge racist. Sorry. I apologize.
The times he grew up in. I mean, let's be honest. Most people were racist back then.
Yeah, most people. A lot of people are racist now, but they hide it a lot more. And except for the past 4 years.
Well, also people.
But no.
Oh, okay.
Let me get to. Yeah, I mean, it was a product of the times, and I think Dr. Seuss did make up for a lot of things that he's done in the past as he grew older, and as he matured, and I don't know, matured, but as new information came to light, like we we're just talking about, and like new ideas came out, and he did do a lot later in his career where he kind of tried to make up for his past transgressions.
Hmm.
But Dr. Seuss was a huge racist back in the day, and it's just something that was the thing.
I mean, you look at old Looney Tunes. There's racist stuff in Looney Tunes, Disney.
Plenty of stuff.
You
Yeah, and
know,
that's the thing. No, I mean,
and like think about like
I don't remember people reacting like this when all the racist Bugs Bunny cartoons started to
disappeared.
like get taken off the air.
Yeah, because they did it. Well,
And I don't know if that's just because there was so much there that no one even really noticed.
that's the thing. It's like, and they did
But
it
yeah,
without
there.
making a big announcement. It just happened. You know, it wasn't
Right.
like a big
And
thing.
that's another thing too. Nowadays, people have to make the big announcements about it and kind of like pat themselves on the back, and that
Maybe
does
not do it on
kind of
Dr.
give
Seuss's birthday.
the
You know,
air. Yeah, that did kind of give the air of like virtual signaling. Like, okay, we're
right?
good people. See, we're getting rid of this racist stuff, and it's like, okay, yeah, just do it. You don't have to make a big deal. And I think I say this a lot. You don't have to make a big deal about it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just
Like,
say, just
well,
change it.
although you know what probably happened is they probably just put out like standard practice. Any PR firm for
Yeah.
any company puts out a press release, and that's probably what it was. They probably just released. You know, they put out the press release because that's what you do. But doing it on Dr. Seuss's birthday, probably not the best timing as far as I'm concerned to do it.
It just puts a target on your back for people
Because everyone's already
to
looking for
say,
Dr.
like, you're
Seuss
just
things
doing
that
this
day.
you're just doing this to placate the left, and it's like, no, I mean, these images were obviously racist. If you go back and look at these things, they're obviously racist. It's not even a question. Like,
And
it's not like, oh, this
it's
is kind of
6
questionable.
books. It's 6 books out of a
That's
huge
right.
collection
and
of
6
books.
out of his yeah.
It's
His
not
huge
like we're
catalog.
taking away the entire catalog. You can still read Green Eggs and Ham. It's not that's not leaving anytime soon. It's just the company that owns the rights of the estate said we're going to stop producing. It's not even taken off the shelves. Like if it's still on the shelf in a bookstore or a library, it's still there. They're
Yeah,
no longer going to produce more of those copies in the future.
right.
They're not
That's it.
erasing it from history. They're not banning
They're
it
not
from
burning
a
the books. They're
library.
not having a
They're not
bonfire.
They're not buying it back from you. They're just choosing to proactively not make any more in the future. 6 books out of an entire collection, and honestly, they're not even the best books of the
Yeah, honestly,
collection.
I don't think I've read it. The
I've
only
never
one I
read
really
any of
recognized
those
the title
books.
was the Mulberry Street one. I just remember
And I
I've
read
heard
it.
the title.
I
I don't
recognize.
actually remember the book.
No, exactly. They're not some of the more premier books. They're not his better works, and they you don't. Or maybe it's just that over the time because they have those racist things, and we've as a society started filtering them out already, and we don't subconsciously like we just stopped reading them as much. Like if you don't know about it, I don't know about them. It's not
Yeah.
that big a deal, guys. It's really not that
Um,
big a deal. And an article I read in the Washington Post this morning was pointing out like, and also he's not the only children's book author out there, and also not the best children's book author out there. You know, making up words to make a rhyme is not always that challenging. Like, yeah, it helps.
He's one of the most famous. It's hard to argue that he's not probably one of the most famous out there.
But like, there's he in the article brought up like what about the newer, more modern people like and he mentioned one of my new favorite ones. The guy, his name is Mo Williams, makes the piggy and elephant books, which are hysterical. And my kid loves reading those because, you know, they play with font size. So when the character's yelling, the font's huge, and when they're quiet, the font's tiny. You know, so it's a lot more interactive. The kids read it and they get into it. So it's not it's 6 books from one author who has a lot of books. And if you have kids, there's a lot of other books out there. You shouldn't just be reading one author anyways. Also, I read this morning, I don't know if it's the same article or not. We're talking about, what's his, oh, I can't think of his name now. Who wrote Charlie and Chocolate Factory? Salvador Dal. Yeah. So originally, the Oompa Loompas were African pygmies in the original version. He changed it in the 70s to what we now recognize as the Oompa Loompas. Because again, it was an evolution thing. Like originally, they were African pygmies, and it was, you know, not the best thing to do. When he was older, he's like, you know, I'm going to change this, and he changed it to what we now see as the Oompa Loompas, which are from the land of Oompa Loompa, and they're fictional race of people. And
right, because slave labor is wrong in the chocolate factory.
Yeah, just saying.
even in a fictional chocolate factory, slave
Even
labor
official.
is not great. Um,
But it's evolution. Again, it's evolution of thought and ideas by an
right, it's
author.
moving forward. It's recognizing that these things were awful stereotypes and hurtful stereotypes, and that's the thing too. It's not always about you, and when I say about you, I'm talking specifically to Ben Shapiro again. It's not about you, Ben Shapiro. Right? It's about other people. It's about making these things accessible to other people, and not like so somebody doesn't have to look at a book and say, man, this is wrong, like this. So just they're just not making them anymore, and that's the thing. Stop stop freaking out about the littlest things. We had the same issue with Potato Head, which was a big misunderstanding apparently. It's just that they're not, I mean, they're not, Potato Head's not going anywhere. They're just not marketing it the same way. It's fine. Like I said last week, you can call Mr. and Mrs. Potato. You can still do that in your own home if you want to. It's just not on the box. It's fine. It's okay. You can make the potato any gender you want. All right.
And
It's a
and the
potato.
reality is, it's a toy.
It's not even a
Based off
potato. It's a piece of plastic.
it was based off the idea of buying pieces of plastic to stick into a real potato. Let's think about the origins of what a potato head is.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous toy. It's a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong.
So
I play with
I
it.
saw
It's fun, but it's a ridiculous toy.
yeah, it's a good. I saw a good meme. It was basically the naked plastic potato with nothing on it, and it was like the Democrats want you to believe that this doesn't have a gender.
Yeah,
It's
it's like
like,
what
yeah,
gender
it's a
does a
piece of
potato
plastic.
have? Come on. It's a,
It's a piece of plastic, guys. Like,
yeah.
relax. It's okay. We'll get through this. We'll get through this.
And personally,
Um,
I'm all for not genderizing kids' toys, anyways, because why do we have to have boys toys and girls toys? They're just toys. Let them play with that whatever they want to play with.
yeah,
If
well,
they're attracted to
you know,
this or that, it's fine.
you say that, and like like I said, I worked in fast food, and this was
Oh yeah,
late. This
McDonald's.
was
You said
this
remember
was
this.
yeah, this was the late '90s and or mid '90s to early 2000s. I worked there, and so that's like 20 25 years ago. And guess what? I remember specifically like memos coming out and being like, we don't call them boy toys or girls toys, because that's what we used to do in the drive-thru, right? It was like, do you want a boy toy or a girl toy? Because it was easy, right? It was really, I didn't have to say the name of the toy. I didn't, it was just super easy. Boy, and we got memos like we need to stop doing that. We need to start calling the toy by their name. Number one, it's good for the toy manufacturer to have their the name brand out there and being said. But number two, yeah, maybe a girl wants a Hot Wheel, not a Barbie, right? Or maybe a boy
Right.
wants a Barbie instead of a Hot Wheel. That's okay. So
It's fine.
right. Don't mischaracterize people by their gender. Like, it's just, that didn't come out right either. But you know what I mean. Yeah,
I know.
anyone can do.
Yeah, I
Anyone
know what you mean.
can do whatever they want. It's not a big deal.
Two,
Just get over it, and that's
two
what
of my
people need to realize.
for
It's
Christmas, my son got two of his favorite gifts. He got for Christmas. 3-year-old boy. He got a doll, and he got a Elsa and Anna blanket from Frozen.
See, I don't have any kids. I
Oh,
don't watch Frozen.
but still,
I
it's
know what
like
it is.
but I don't care. Kid wants a doll, he gets a doll. I don't really care. He loves that thing.
Right. Well, I remember being a kid, and like my sister teasing me about like action figures and be like, oh, they're dolls, and getting like mad. But guess what? Like now, people shouldn't even get mad by that. You want to call my action figure a doll, whatever. Like like, obviously I'm more mature now and can understand that. But if we had those kind of ideas back then, like it wouldn't be an issue. It'd be like, yeah, it's a doll, whatever, fine. No one, like, it was just one of those things where it really doesn't matter, because it's all words, it's all nomenclature. It doesn't really affect how you interact with these objects anyway. So
No,
it
but I
doesn't
definitely
matter.
remember as a kid, you go to Toys R Us and it's like clearly this is the girl aisle over here for 3 aisles, and then these are the boy aisles, and
Yeah.
it was like because this is all pink, and then this is all blue, which I found out recently. I think like 100 years or so about that ago, pink used to be the boy color. That's at one point in our history, not that far back, like within 100 years, pink was the boy color at one point. So you want to talk about stereotypes and like, what was I
Well, 100
watching?
years ago, we didn't even gender kids.
Well,
until they
they
reached
all wore
puberty.
dresses as
Right.
kids. Yeah. And
They were
then
basically, yeah, we didn't gender kids until they reached puberty and started showing characteristics. Like it wasn't even questioned. But
you go to
I mean, I
restaurants.
don't
Look
know where
who's
along the line someone said like we have to like raise strong men and like things like that. And I don't know where that maybe the two world wars had something to do with that.
maybe.
But
Oh yeah, that you got to toughen up and deal with that shell shock. Maybe
yeah,
that's what it is.
yeah.
All that undiagnosed PTSD that we had from World
Oh
War II
god,
that
it was
just
awful. Like war. Guess what? War's bad.
yeah, and then
But
created
it's
lifelong
funny you brought that
alcoholics and
up
stuff.
because real quick going back on the coronavirus thing, like we talk about all these kids and like the mental health of these kids and how this is affecting, and I think it is going to have a strong effect on them, but
Hmm.
probably not as strong as effect as it did back 80 years ago when we just basically said, okay, you can't have your senior year of high school because you have to go to Europe and like shoot people.
Right.
Like talk
Like
about that, like that, like we're worried about kids' mental health now, and I don't want to like minimize it because it is something that's serious,
hmm
but at the same time, like we didn't care 80 years ago when we were just shipping kids. Oh, you're gonna miss your senior year of high school because you gotta go murder people. Like that's basically what we did. Um, it's just times are changing.
Speaking of that, there was an HBO miniseries a couple years back called The Pacific. I want to say it is where it was like it was a really good miniseries because they showed it. It's one of those things where I grew up watching all these war movies, but it's only recently that we have war movies from World War II that really start to show you the gravity of what the soldiers were dealing with and the
Yeah,
mental stress and like the actual blood. This miniseries by HBO, they the scenes that I watched, like I wouldn't. You got to be in the right frame of mind to even watch it sometimes because just bodies piled on top of bodies, and then another string of people come out, and the machine guns just are going off, and then bodies are dropping everywhere, and it's like this is, and then you think back, like this is what we sent our kids to do. These are, and like you said, these are
yeah,
17, 18, 19-year olds
literal
doing
children.
this.
Yeah,
And I'm looking at my college. These are my college students. That's who would have been doing this right now. I'm like,
yep.
they how does that mess up people so much? Now I understand. Like, nowadays I'm like, this is why my grandfather was an alcoholic. you know, he was
Well,
a pilot.
this is I think this
Gunner
is why
over the
that
Pacific.
generation did have a lot of issues, right?
Oh yeah,
Right. I think that generation
because they're also told to toughen up and just deal with it. Like they
had a
didn't
lot of
talk
problems,
about it.
right? Because there was no other thing, there was no other way to. That's what people knew, right? We didn't care about things like mental health or like, worrying about people's like mental health. I guess I'm trying to think of different words.
Mental
But yeah,
health.
we like no nobody cared really. Let's be honest. Like nobody thought about these things. It was basically like, yeah, just get over it and just do it, and you'll be fine. Um, but a lot of people obviously weren't, and we see it to this day. We see issues with post war traumatic stress. It happened after Vietnam. It happened after people in the Gulf War. It's going to happen to people in the wars that, I mean, we've been in war now for 20 years.
Well, I mean, the Vietnam War too. The difference between I think with the stress after Vietnam versus World War II, like people coming home from World War II, they were seen as heroes, like triumphant, beat the Nazis, all this stuff. People coming back from Vietnam, uh, were hated by citizens because the war was so controversial that you had, okay, I'm coming back home, I'm stressed out, I'm dealing with all these things, and I'm getting no support from people here, any because they're calling me baby killers, even if I got drafted and I had no choice of what I did, and I maybe I didn't do anything bad, but I'm still being lumped in with all these other people, and it was just like an escalated situation. Now we've not only have we caused them to have mental stress, but then we're even yelling at them when they get home, and now it's even worse. It's just spiraling out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, I always kind of question how much that actually happened. There's a lot of stories about like you used to hear stories about like soldiers getting spit on and stuff like that, but and I think that was all kind of mythologized.
Excuse me, Forrest
I'm
Gump
not
is a
sure if that
documentary.
stuff like that actually happened. Yeah, yeah, like yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I will say that for the best have don't glorify war as much as we used to. You know, especially in our media and things like that. And we are starting to show like the repercussions, like, and the struggles of people that who have to fight in wars and stuff like that. And yeah, it's not great. It's
War
not
is
something
not,
I would ever want to do. That's for
war is
sure.
not good.
Yeah,
War is
war is bad, people. Like that's basically. And I know people think it's necessary, but it's the most for the most part, it's
it's
really not.
no
It's basically put in place to keep power structures
in line.
in line. And as someone who kind of fights against power structures, is I recognize that especially for the people that have to fight in the war, it's usually not in their best interest to be fighting in that war, which is another whole nother ball of wax. But
Oh, war. What is it good
is it
for?
good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Say it again.
See, music doesn't lie.
Music never lies. That's probably not true either. I'm sure
But
music lies
speaking of
sometimes.
the kids though, like the good part about the time we're living in now is, now I don't know if it's true across the country, but I can say from at least my local community, you know, even before this, social emotional learning is part of the curriculum now. And so that's one of their priorities with, especially with the younger students. And throughout this whole time, they've been stressing that the most important part of the students right now is their social emotional aspect, and then everything else comes after that. So they wanted to make sure the kids are doing well mentally, emotionally, more than
yeah, I
math.
mean that makes so much sense, because if you don't have that base, like, what does it matter if you're trying to learn facts, right?
Yeah,
If you don't have a good mental state and a good and a good outlook, like, what does it matter if you know history, or like if you know your times tables, or it's useless, because you're not going to be a good human being, to be honest with you, right?
right. And let's be honest, the what we teach students now in school is far past what we did in school 20, 30 years ago. What
Yeah,
my son
which
is
is,
learning in
I mean,
first grade
education's
is
always evolving, right? We're
so
always trying to advance education,
so when we say kids are
and
falling
get kids to learn
behind,
more.
what my thing is, like, depending on where you are, and again, this isn't true across the board, because there are some students that are falling further behind based on, and it has to do more with socioeconomic circumstances, just because they don't have as good access to things, internet, digital divide, things like that. That's a whole nother topic. But all things, if we could create all things equal, and students that are actually in school, when people say, oh, they're falling behind, it's an imaginary line that they're falling behind. We've created this line that they should be here by a certain time. Those are expectations we've created over decades. It can be fluid. We can catch them up. It doesn't matter. As long as they're mentally healthy and they're still learning something and they're evolving, that's the most important thing to me. I mean, my
Right. Well,
son
that goes
is
back.
reading like crazy now, so he's gone from not being able to read at the beginning of the year to, like, he can play Breath of the Wild on his own because he can read the text on the screen now. So he's doing great.
Yeah, and that goes back to, I think we talked about this even last week, was like standardized testing, and how schools with low test scores will somehow get less funding, and how
Oh
that
yeah, we
doesn't
did.
that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
Right. Those students need more resources, not less resources.
Yeah, and they need, and those students need internet access at home so they can compete with other students. I hate saying the
Yeah,
word compete with students.
which
That was
which
that
I
was a horrible
I
phrase.
think that's going to be a big push in the next in the Biden administration, is trying to get broadband internet access to um
Everybody.
to everybody, no matter where you live in this country. Like people talk about, you hear people talk about like the telephones, and how like that was and electricity even, like, and how getting electricity into rural areas was a big thing in, like, I believe the 20s or the 30s.
Right.
Because not every area had access to electricity, which is astonishing to think about, at this point. But not that long ago, this was the reality for people, and it's kind of the same reality for broadband internet access. Like, we live in relatively big cities, um, compared to, like, small rural towns. So, like, we've never really had to go without things like internet access
But
and
even
like
in big
cable
cities, there's still
access.
a divide. Like
Well, there's
just
always
because
going to be a. There, I mean, I don't want to say always, but hopefully not always.
even
But
in
there's
cities, there's not access to every location. That and I think that's a misnomer that a lot of people have. Like they always think of like, oh, people that don't have internet access in that rural area because they just haven't run the line, which is true. But
that has more to do with poverty though than it does like infrastructure. You
but
know.
also has to do with like, hey, that rural area over there, they're 20 miles away from the last node. It's going to cost the company X millions of dollars to run a cable out there for the 5 people that live in the area. So physically, financially, it's not worth it for AT&T to run the line, so they don't run the line because the people out there aren't going to pay the millions of dollars for them to run a line. And then now in order for them to get internet, currently they have to use like satellite internet, which is hugely expensive. Um, so unless you have
Well,
a government mandate
that's
that you
also a good
have to do
argument
it, they won't do
for
it.
socializing these things, right? There's a
Well,
good
yeah.
argument for
Oh,
socializing all like utilities,
well,
which
that's a huge problem because there's a lot of local governments that have put laws in effect based off of lobbyists. Lobbyists have caused this, and the people have gone around to different local municipalities, and there's laws on the books that prevent the local government from having its own internet provider. They basically put laws on books that make it so a corporation, an AT&T, a Verizon, what have you, have to be the provider in the town, and you cannot, as a municipality, create your own internet source.
hopefully that will change in the near
Oh, I
future.
hope so. I hope so. Because if
Because
it's utility is
that's a
what you
big
should do.
deal. But I've heard stories about like when phone lines were getting put out there, and what the companies did was they said, okay, yeah, they took money from the government to put these phone lines up because yeah, they're not going to do it themselves because it's not profitable. So they took money from the government to do it, and then basically just ran away with the money because that's what private corporations are they're gonna find a way to take as much money as they can and and not spend as much money as they can, right?
Right.
Because that's what's in the best interest of their shareholders. So
And don't forget, there's a
like that's
fallacy
why
about choice when it comes to internet too. Like you where you live, where I live, you really have no choice about who you have as your provider. It's like the one. It's like the one of those legal monopolies. There's very few legal monopolies in the country. Major League Baseball being one of them. Uh, it's actually a legal monopoly. There, but like, there's essentially a monopoly about the internet that you can have access to in your house, and you think you have a choice because you can have. Oh, I could have Optimum or I could have Frontier, but they're two different technologies because one is cable, one is fiber. But that's it. I can't have Comcast because they haven't run a cable there because it's not
right.
financially feasible for them to run cable where someone else has already run cable, and so they won't.
Right. I know in other countries the way around that is that you other companies can come in and use the other company's cable. They have to pay like a nominal fee for that.
Right.
And that's another way. But that's a good way to create competition. And because at least in the system that we have now, um, competition can do things like keep prices down. I kind of lost my train of thought,
But there is no competition right now with it.
but yeah, oh yeah. I mean, where I live, it's basically we have Spectrum, which used to be Time Warner Cable, or if I wanted internet, it would have to be like satellite or something, because there's no other options for cable in this area. It's either if you want cable, you need to get Spectrum. FiOS won't even run here.
So you have
I
no
know
choice.
AT&T now has a thing, but that's based off the internet. So you still have to pay Spectrum for your internet if you want different kinds of cable, like different kinds of television or media.
Well, it's like we use YouTube TV for our TV entertainment, but we still have to pay Optimum for the line to come to the house.
Right.
So, like I said, there's the fallacy of choice because there really is no choice when it comes to your internet source, and then because there is no competition, like you said, the price there is no it doesn't lower the prices when there's no competition, and so then going back to the people of low socioeconomic situations, if you're choosing between paying for internet or paying for groceries, because internet's going to be $100 a month, and you don't have that money to spend on internet, you're not going to spend it if there's
Yeah.
no lower price option.
I mean, it's perfect. It's a perfectly feasible thing to be able to have internet access in every home, for free. Like that's something that's feasible. It's not outside the realm of impossibility.
We used to have it with dial-up. Actually, there was like things like Net Zero, which was a free internet provider through your phone.
Right.
back in the day. You'd have an ad banner at the top, but at least you didn't have to pay for it if you didn't have the money for it.
But I mean, that's just something that would need to be done by the government, and people don't like things run by the government in this country, because we've been brainwashed by people like Ronald Reagan to say like everything the government does is bad, which
This is me
isn't
banging my
exactly
head on
true.
the microphone.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously corruption sometimes in government, but guess what? There's a lot more corruption in the private sector.
Right.
Hate to
And
break
and
that
they're
to
doing
people.
it in conjunction with the government. Like,
Well,
let's think about it. The corruption that is in the private sector is allowed by the government through lobbyists, through legislation. Like I said, the reason why you don't have choice about who your internet provider is because of laws that was created by
right.
the government. So it's not like the government's not involved anyways. I don't know. Maybe Elon Musk will succeed with his internet of web around the globe, and we'll just have free Wi-Fi from the clouds.
We'll all bow down to Elon Musk and his lithium mines.
I always have a love-hate relationship about Elon Musk.
I have a hate relationship with Elon Musk, but I do at least recognize that he's trying to use his power and position to help people, but at the same time, I'm always concerned that it's going to be to his benefit.
Well, so the reason
In
why
the
I
long
say
run.
love hate, like I don't think about him trying to help people necessarily, because I'm not worried about that. I don't think he
I
is.
think he does want to make the world a better place. Like
All right.
I don't look at Elon Musk and say like he's nefarious in his, but I also think he's the kind of guy who's like, yeah, I want to make the world a better place, but what am I going to get out of it?
And then I'm gonna make a flamethrower. But I always look at the fact that, like, hey, he made Tesla and he made electric cars sexy. So that has jump started other manufacturers to also make good looking electric car. Like, because before that, if you think electric car, people thought of like some dumpy car, like, what that tree huggers wanted and whatnot. And he
50
said,
miles per hour top
yeah.
speed. Yeah.
But he's like, I'm going to start with a roadster and make something that's badass, and then trickle down to lower, more affordable things as I go. But whether you like or don't like Tesla was almost inconsequential, because you have to recognize the influence it's had on the rest of the car industry, as far as GM and Volvo and Ford now making all these commitments to electrifying their fleet, and creating really nice cars with it. Like, not just like not everything's going to be the Chevy Volt or Bolt, whichever one it is, and which is a tiny little car. It's actually a nice car to drive, but it's tiny. Things are, it's going to look good in the future, and we have to give them some credit for that. Like you said, other things, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, we still live in a capitalist system. Like, it's not
it's still
that's not going to change anytime soon. So, yeah, like it's like the whole Bill Gates thing. Like,
I mean, he made his money off of PayPal, so
Bill Gates does want to make the world a better place, right? But he still wants to do that, but still like take his bigger section of the pie for. Like, oh God, I hate when he has like interviews and they talk about like taxes, and he's like, I've paid billions and billions in taxes, and it's like, yeah, and you're still not short on money, dude. Like, like but you could pay a lot more, and you'd still be doing pretty well. You'd still be one of the richest people in the world.
and let's not forget, his beginnings weren't exactly altruistic. He did steal some things.
Oh, he did. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's another thing we can get into too. We can get into, but that's how
the
that's how
Pirates
you
of
get ahead
Silicon
in this
Valley,
world, isn't
baby.
it? You take other people's ideas and you
Him and Steve Jobs
for
did not like each
yourself.
other for a long time.
Yeah, and for good reasons. But
But again, competition led to a computer revolution.
but that goes back to being the self-made man. Like, you think, I'm sure Bill Gates thinks of himself as like a self-made man, but in reality, there's a lot of things that he took and stole and used for his benefit. And like, I go
Well,
back to like
he didn't
Thomas
invent the
Edison.
computer.
Like, people like worship Thomas Edison
Oh my God.
for like the light bulb.
How
And
many
it's like,
assistants did he have?
there's tons of things that he didn't
It's
do
called
on his
Edison
own.
Labs. Edison
Right.
Labs that employed people that created things. Yes, he was.
I think with Elon Musk,
He
though,
still
isn't it?
deserves
Elon Musk
credit.
is, I guess, is the modern day Thomas Edison when we look at it like
Right.
that. Like,
But he's not inventing every single technology that they're using on the car. He's just the person at the head of the line promoting it. Yeah, he is smart. He did do a lot of the engineering, but he's not the rocket scientist that's making SpaceX, that's getting things into that's bringing things to the space station. But he, it's always like when you're the mad scientist, you know a lot of the things, but then you also, and this is true of everything. Like, you can have the vision, you can be really smart about it, but you still need to surround yourself with other people that are good at their job too. Because if you're Steven Spielberg, you're a great filmmaker, but if you don't have a great cinematographer next to you and a great lighting director and a great script, you can't make a good movie. You have to surround yourself with a good team of talented people. Even if you're the head of the team and you still have to have a lot of talent yourself, you still have to have other talented people with you to make that dream come true.
That's the thing. Elon Musk didn't invent rockets, right? The rockets existed before Elon Musk came around. Electric cars existed before Elon Musk came around.
But rockets that land themselves, though.
That made them better. And it's the same thing with Thomas Edison and the light bulb, right? There have been light bulbs 70 years before Thomas Edison existed. It's just the fact that he was able to improve on the system and make it kind of more accessible to everybody, which is good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but don't come around saying like he did it by himself. It's ridiculous.
Right. I agree. Well, we can't do this podcast by ourselves either, because talking to yourself is not interesting.
No, people do it.
That's so weird.
And yeah, and especially like radio shows. Like, we're going to get way off topic, then we're going to end the show. But like, yeah, listen to radio shows. And
I was trying to make a nice ending.
I always think like, how do I talk to myself? And like, how do these people just sit there? And yeah, I guess you could do like call-ins and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, wow. It's like it's almost impressive, like the way people do like radio shows and podcasts. AM talk radio show. Yeah, I don't know. That's why Twitch streaming and like it's YouTube streaming is kind of interesting to me, like, because it's usually just one person and a chat room. And number one, I don't understand how people ever find these people to get into the chat room. I guess there's different ways, but like I keep thinking about starting like a Twitch stream, but every time I go on Twitch to play a game or something, I'm like, nobody's going to come and watch me, because who the hell wants to come watch me play a game? Like, whatever.
I don't know. People do, apparently. It happens. It's a thing.
No, I mean, I don't watch Twitch streams. I don't go and like search out Twitch streams. I do have a Twitch, but it is interesting to watch like some of the videos. Like, I've been into some of like speedrun videos, like especially for the classic games.
Speedruns.
Because I'm like amazed, and I get how to do it, right? I get the idea that like they sit there and they practice specific spots and then they try to put it all together in one run, and they do it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and probably like thousands of times to get like every like frame perfect button, like. And there's strategies too, right? But like, it's funny because like, especially like the old NES games that like I remember playing and like struggling with, and then I'll just watch somebody just go through and like speed run it, like in like what's the record for Mario? Like, it's 3 minutes something or something.
Yeah. Well, it's because any old game is a pattern.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. If you can memorize the pattern, you can do it. And plus, with all the warps, you never beat any level anyways until the end.
But even too, I've been watching this one streamer who does like Grand Theft Auto 5 speedruns. And a lot of that's random. So that makes it a little bit more interesting, right? Because he has to get good random results to have a good speed run. But I think he's played like 8,000 hours of Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh my god.
And that's just like recorded, like that's but that's his job.
Well, that's
amazing to me. Basically, he's making a living. Probably making as much as we do, and maybe even a little bit more.
Just playing Grand Theft Auto.
Playing Grand Theft Auto because people will watch him play Grand Theft Auto, and I think to me that's incredible. Like that's kind of like, I wish that kind of stuff was around when I was growing up, because that's.
It's kind of why I don't really poo-poo on my kids playing video games, because like it is a, we growing up, people always be like, "Oh, you're not gonna make a living playing video games." I'm like, no, actually, you can.
Yeah, if you get really good, you get like there's esports out there now. You can get college scholarships, I think, for.
Oh yeah, you can. We have a club. They're currently organizing a tournament with other colleges. We're gonna do it all virtual. But it's.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember you telling me about that.
And it's definitely a thing, and not only that, like you get other skills, hand-eye coordination, things like that, and.
You sent me the wrong link last week.
That's right.
To the podcast, and it was about equipment for doing the streaming.
Because someone was asking me about it, and that, I guess it was still in my. I thought I copied the new link, but apparently that was still the link I had copied.
Yeah, I got this article. I was like, "Are we doing a video game stream? Like, when you want to start doing that? Maybe we'll do a Twitch channel."
He was like, "How are we going to do this?" I'm like, "I don't know. Let's start looking things up." And then I found a great article about it. So. Because whenever I want to do something, I figure out how other people did it first and improve upon it, because you do nothing by yourself.
Maybe we'll talk about video games next week. Maybe we'll get.
Was it a nice lighthearted topic?
I did want to talk about Civilization 6 because we both got into that.
Oh man,
that was the first. It was the first Civilization game I really got into. So maybe.
All right, maybe
we'll put a pin in that. And
let's do next week just video games.
Just talk about fun things next week.
Yeah, we'll just talk about video games next week.
Unless something big happens.
Hopefully nothing big happens.
I
like a boring administration. The only thing that's going to happen is passing the new round of stimulus relief.
Yes, maybe we'll talk about that because the House passed it.
The Senate.
But we talked about that earlier, like the $15 minimum wage that the Democrats are
dropping.
They're going to fail on again,
yeah.
Which is very, very disappointing. But for next time, Keith.
Well, like I said, if you've enjoyed listening to us rant about things, please give us a like and review. You can email us at gzennial@gmail.com. I remembered it this time.
See, good job.
I was thinking about it all with gzennial@gmail.com.
gzennial@gmail.com, people. Yeah, send us an email. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to talk. What do you want to hear about?
Yeah.
I mean, Keith and I like to rant about things, but we don't.
We know more than just politics.
We want to grow our listener base. Share this with your friends. Maybe they want to hear us rant about like stupid things, and we have no problem doing that. We're here for the people.
And when Vinny starts watching wrestling again, we'll get back to that.
Yeah, I gotta have a good reason to get back into watching wrestling. There's a WrestleMania season coming up, so maybe I'll start getting back into things.
For the one show a year, that's it.
I heard Shaq is wrestling. That's kind of interesting.
Oh, you know what? To me, that was like, I didn't watch it last night. I didn't watch last night's AEW because he's supposed to, I guess, be on the pay-per-view this weekend. Honestly, that segment, that whole storyline does not interest me at all. I have no interest in that storyline. So
that's fair. So,
and something that's okay. You don't have to. Here's the thing about any show, whether it's wrestling, any kind of form of entertainment. If they're presenting you with 5 different storylines, you don't have to like all of them to still enjoy the show.
Yeah, especially when you have like the 3-hour show like Raw is. But...
Oh my God. Okay. Pause.
Right, until next time.
Have a good week.
Take care.
Peace.